Welcome to the Slow Living Collective podcast. I'm Amy, wife, mother of two and homemaker. Come along with me as I share my love for simple living, growing in my allotment garden, diving into what it means to be an urban homesteader and embracing life as a mother and homemaker. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Slow Living Collective podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Today I want to springboard off into mindful consumption, which I feel like is a good sort of follow-on from talking last week about decluttering. So what really is mindful consumption? How can we be more mindful about what we're consuming, both in terms of what we purchase, but also what we're consuming in the world in general? Now listen, the world is a busy place. It is full of noise and it is constantly encouraging us to wear busy like a badge of honour. Each person trying to outcompete the next person for how busy their life is. Oh, I don't know about you, but it just makes me tired just even thinking about it. So that's what I want to dive into today. Now, I would love to hear from you guys if you have started your decluttering journeys, because I've been sharing mine over on Instagram and I would love to know whether you have started. Are you getting use out of the decluttering checklists? If you haven't started yet, you can head over to my website, theslowlivingcollective.com, and you can download your decluttering checklists there. So make sure you head over there and check those out. I will leave all the links as usual in the notes. But let's just jump into today's episode. I particularly remember when I was at university, so I was in my early 20s, probably 20, coming up 21. And that's when I first sort of had the idea on how busyness was sort of used as this badge of honour. And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, a real long-standing friend of mine. We are, are we still friends today? Maybe. Nothing went down, let me put it that way, but you just sort of drift apart as you get older. But we were discussing our impending schedule of essays, and I mentioned that I'd finished all but one. You know what it's like if you've been to university, like your final year, it's just a lot. And we had all of these essays that were due right at the end of the semester, within sort of days of each other. And so we were discussing, all these essays, and I said that, for the first time in my life, I'd actually managed to sort of, I don't know, be a bit proactive and actually get things done and not be panicking at the last minute. And my friends started reeling off everything that they needed to do. And it was such a busy as a badge of honour moment. And this is nothing against that friend, obviously. This is just an example of the way we actually all act from time to time. And that's just because this busyness is so ingrained in us and in society. And I remember thinking at the time, well, I'd rather be me than you, because obviously I had most of my work done and they didn't. And realistically, it was probably all the way back then I realised that my outlook on the world was a little different. But it's not that easy to break these long-standing generational cycles. We're always expected to be always on, working hard, hustling, and actually defined by what we do for a job, what's our career, rather than being defined by who we are as people. How many times have we been at an event or meeting new people and someone says, "Oh, so what is it that you do?" And it's those moments that it defines us by the job we have rather than anything else. Now, I wouldn't, you wouldn't go up to somebody and be like, "Hey, I'm Julia and I'm a mortgage advisor." Maybe at some sort of awful networking event, maybe. But in everyday life, that's not how you'd introduce yourself. But society has us defined by what we do. And it's the very reason why, if you are, for example, a stay-at-home mother like I am, that is not considered as good as if I was to be like, "Oh, I am Amy and I am a barrister." People will be like, "Wow, that's incredible." If I say, oh, I'm Amy and I'm a stay-at-home mum, they're like, oh, good for you. But the modern world has brought this more and more to the fore, with this always being switched on, always hustling, and being defined by what we do rather than who we are. And this is, like I said, the modern world is bringing this more and more into our everyday life with technology. Our devices are always on. You can be connected to and reached at almost every single moment of your life. There is no peace, there is no tranquility, and it's probably why more and more people are reaching back to the things that connect us to who we are, connect us to what was traditionally the way we used to live, and connecting us back to nature and not connecting ourselves permanently to the internet. Now, let me get this straight. I love the internet. I love that I have been able to create a career I love here, and I love that I still get to do that and change that. And I still get to, create content like right now. I couldn't do that without the internet. And even as I change as a person, it's still a place of so much opportunity, but it is also a place where we need to set boundaries and be more mindful. And I'm lucky. I feel like I'm lucky because I've always felt that I've had a really good relationship with my time online. Things like Instagram and social media in general, I've always had a good relationship with them. I don't use social media other than Instagram. I don't use Facebook. I don't use Twitter. Instagram is the only place I show up. TikTok, I don't use TikTok either. I am on Instagram. I use Pinterest, but Pinterest, pro tip, is not social media. It is a search engine. So Instagram is really the only place you'll find me and that I'll show up, other than my blog. So because I've always had this good relationship with the internet and with apps like Instagram, I always feel like, because I know who I am, I feel like that comparison that so many people feel on these apps is something that I have thankfully been able to sidestep. I don't know, is it just me? But I don't feel like I have to be online. But instead, I enjoy being online. I enjoy creating content. I enjoy sharing my voice. And then I enjoy spending time away whenever I want. And that really does ebb and flow. Sometimes I feel like I'll be creating a lot of content and I'll be on Instagram a lot. And then other times I feel like, I step away a little more. And, I love creating content. I love sharing it. And sometimes the balance is not as easy as that. Sometimes it goes one way or the other. But I think it's that balance that many people struggle with. And so I wanted to dive into some ways that you can be able to set boundaries around the internet, around social media, and just be mindful about what you consume in every area of your life. Because mindful consumption isn't just about what you're consuming in your everyday life offline. It's not only about the things that you purchase and buy and bring into your home, but it's about what you're consuming all the time. So in last week's episode, we spoke about decluttering and minimizing and just being a bit more intentional with what we surround ourselves with. And in some of my previous episodes, we've gone through about being intentional in our lives, finding our purpose, and finding those things that absolutely light a fire inside of us. Now, when it comes to decluttering and minimizing what we have, we often only think of it in terms of physical items that are clogging up our homes and our space, the things that we can see. But what if we started thinking about it in terms of the digital items we have and the things that we consume, whether that's knowingly or not knowingly on a daily basis? So let's start with digital media, social media. It all takes up brain space, the news as well. And these things affect the way we think and feel. And I think for me personally, if living through a pandemic has taught me anything at all, it is that the things I consume and surround myself with in digital formats have just as much impact as the things that are physically happening in my day-to-day life. Now, I already mentioned previously in this episode about social media, but I do want to circle back round to it because social media is often portrayed as dangerous, a place where people waste their time. It's a place that it can be unregulated, it can be dangerous. And while all these things can certainly be true, there are some incredible benefits too. Again, the pandemic taught me a lot about this. For modern day mothers, parenting in isolation and without their physical village through a pandemic was an absolute lifeline for so many people. It can be a place to seek advice from other people who are right in the trenches with them on a particular subject. It can be a place to forge friendship with people who have like minded ideas as you. It can be a place to find community in a world that has us cut off from our communities oh so frequently, which happened to us so many times as we navigated our way through the pandemic. And while life offline is so important and so necessary, let's not always assume that everything about it is bad. I mean, just imagine how many people feel less alone because they have an online community that they can turn to. Imagine how many people who feel lonely are able to find connection with others when it can sometimes seem really impossible. Now, social media has its upsides and its downsides, and like I said, I am completely mindful in the way I have always used it. Sometimes I use it in wonderful moderation, and sometimes I don't. So I wanted to put together some tips to share with you on how you can maybe use social media with intention. And these are great to follow in times, or all the time, but particularly in times where maybe you feel like you can't find the right balance. So I know so many people who say that they find social media are stuck on their time or they get lost in it, and it's a difficult one to balance. So I want to start with this one because this one is something that I feel quite strongly about. Don't let anyone tell you that scrolling without intention is a waste of your time, right? It's your time. You waste it how you want to waste it. If scrolling Twitter or Instagram is how you want to decompress from your day, to temporarily switch off from life, or just enjoy catching up with your online network, then go ahead and do it. Don't let anybody tell you how to waste your own time. I will often scroll Instagram in the evening when I'm in bed, when the kids are asleep. And I just want to decompress. It's busy being a stay at home mum and, getting everyone fed and to bed and time to relax. It's a lot. I'm on the go all day long. I'm with the kids all day. I love it. But it's a lot. And I like to, be able to decompress. Now, the next tip is if you feel like being on your phone or social media is becoming too much, and I think you'll know when it is becoming too much, then think about setting a phone limit for the day. You can set physical limits, like you can shut your phone away or leave your phone like downstairs when you're upstairs, or you can actually set digital limits on your phone. And these can be things like you can have limits on how many times you unlock your phone or how much screen time you have. You can also set individual app limits for screen time. So if you particularly found you were scrolling too much on Instagram, you could set Instagram so you can only scroll on it for like an hour a day. You can do this with individual apps, and you have complete control over how much you wish to spend time on each one. And another one is, like I already mentioned, really, but about setting a time in your day to scroll. Mine is after the kids are asleep and it's time for me, and I enjoy a little bit of a catch up, a little bit of a scroll, or watching some YouTube videos. I don't watch TV at all, so this is my leisure time. Another thing I think is really useful to talk about is about digital detoxes, because I hear people talking about, I'm going to take a digital detox, and that's probably not a phrase you'll hear coming out of my mouth, not because I don't take time away from the digital world, but it's just sort of like a natural ebb and flow, I guess, in my life. And I appreciate some people live differently to me and sometimes need that sort of digital detox. So let me talk about some ways that you can minimize your life digitally. Right, so I'm going to talk about some things you can do physically and some things you can do virtually. So let's start with virtually, as we were talking about online just now, and then we'll move on to some physical stuff. So virtually, how you can take a digital detox virtually. So you can obviously actually just take some time away. I know some people uninstall the app so they can just take time offline, and these apps obviously have an addictive quality because they want to keep us on their app, and so they are, they're designed that way. So if you feel like you're taking too much time on them and you want to just cut them off cold turkey, then taking a digital detox might be a good idea for you. So you can just stop using it, which might not be that easy because of its addictive qualities. You can reduce your time, like we mentioned, having app limits, uninstalling the app and just taking time away. But I think what you'll find, because I know I find this in periods where I'm maybe not using Instagram as much as I used to, and I'm doing that more and more at the moment. I like to use Instagram, like when I want something to share, like I want to share it, but use it with a bit more intention. But what I do find is once I actually stop using it, the need to use it disappears. So if you feel like maybe you are, using something a little bit too much, then yeah, I think that taking a digital detox might actually get you into sort of a different flow of the way you use it. Another thing is when you're online, be mindful about who you're following and the consumption there. Unfollow anyone who makes you feel less worthy. They don't mean it. I'm sure they don't mean it, but the last thing that we need is to question ourselves more than we already do. And that leads nicely into the comparison trap. Apps like Instagram or TikTok, they're known for being a highlight reel, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. But it brings along this comparison trap where we start to compare ourselves to other people's lives that we see online. So if you are able, sounds really blasé, but forget the comparison trap. Everyone has struggles offline, whether you see them or not. And so let's circle back round to that highlight reel. Now, you will hear all the time that Instagram is a highlight reel, and I want you to ditch that idea right here, right now. Because remember this, the best moments of your life don't even make it to Instagram. The best moments of your life are those moments and feelings that don't even make it onto a photo or video. Instagram isn't a highlight reel, it is a scrapbook, right, for most people. And yes, while people are maybe not sharing the ups and downs, we're all aware that they exist. It just takes a little bit of a reframe of our mind to really sort of rationalize some of these things. And the last point when talking about the things that we can do virtually to digital detox is when you are looking at people who are maybe influencers or network marketing reps who work for multi-level marketing companies, remember this. They're trying to sell you on a lifestyle that is unattainable for so many people. Please don't be drawn into it, especially multi-level marketing. I have a number of episodes on that, so feel free to go back and check those out. Okay, let's move on to some of the physical ways you can have a digital detox. So one of the big ones for us is that we don't have TV in the bedroom. And we haven't had a TV in the bedroom actually our entire marriage. We have never had a TV in the bedroom. I had a TV in the bedroom when I lived at home, but since I have lived with my husband, we have never had a TV in the bedroom. We don't watch TV anyway, but we would stream sometimes, but we make our bedroom strictly for sleep only and podcasting as well. And on that note, keeping your bedroom free of devices where possible really helps. So no TVs, tablets, computers, phones. And something some people do is set a time for having no more devices like phones in the bedroom. Now, I'm not really one to be preaching here because I just told you guys that when my kids are in bed, I am in bed watching a YouTube video. So I'm not perfect. This is still a work in progress for me with my phone, but it is something I'm actively working on because we all know that blue light interrupts our sleep. And all the advice says that we shouldn't be using our devices, watching TV, at least 2 hours before we are intending to sleep. So, not having these things in the bedroom would be a game changer. Now, the news. The news is heavy. It has been always heavy. I feel like the news is always heavy. Coming out of a pandemic, we know what the weight of the news felt. So try and switch off from it where you can. Opinions of other people as well can weigh really heavy in relation to the news, and we're constantly bombarded through the news, through social media, articles. Honestly, switch off, unsubscribe, and stay clear of anything that brings you anxiety or makes you feel anything less than great. And when things feel heavy, for me, the answer is always to unplug, head out into nature and get some fresh air. It is magical. And if you are a nature person, I would love to advise you to do the same. So we live in this really modern digital world. We have 24-hour news. We have apps that we can always be connected to. We have the ability to be constantly connected through our phones, through text messages, WhatsApp, Instagram, all social media, emails. We can have our phones pinging all hours of the day or night. The biggest thing I've done, and I did this about 5 years ago, is get rid of every notification on your phone that is possible. So the only things that my phone does that makes a noise or anything visual is text messages, certain WhatsApps, and I'll go into that in a minute, and my phone. And so my phone can ring, I can get text messages because the only people that really text me are my family, and WhatsApp, the only people I have on WhatsApp that aren't muted are my family in case they need to get hold of me in emergency. Everybody else is muted. I promise you it's not personal. It's just that I prefer to open the app when I've got the time and the capacity to deal with it. Same with Instagram. I don't have notifications on Instagram. When I have a moment, I will check Instagram. I might see that there's a message there. I might have a quick scroll. I might respond. I might answer a comment. Things like that. Same with WhatsApp. I will open the app when I have a second. If I've got some messages, I will read them. I will respond because I have the time and capacity to do it then and there. Otherwise, I'm more likely to get overwhelmed. And so, in a world that is so switched on, it is a complete radical act to switch off. So, just take a few minutes and think about your current connection to the digital world, whether that's the internet, screen time, news, social media, checking your emails, maybe you run your own business, and think about how each of these make you feel, especially being mindful of trying to simplify your life and slow down. Think about what brings you joy and what makes you anxious. Are there areas you could pull back on or change things? And just be kind to yourself because you're figuring it all out. But figure out what is making you feel worse. The things that make you feel worse about anything are the things that need to go. Maybe you need to turn off all your notifications. Maybe you need to mute everybody on WhatsApp except your mum. Whatever it is, find a way to balance things until you start to feel better. For some people, it could mean just cutting the news out entirely. For some, it will mean finding an acceptable level. And then once you stop feeling like you're operating in disaster mode, which, let me just say, you've just been through a pandemic and it's totally normal to be feeling this way, I think you'll find that you can breathe a little easier. Thank you guys so much for listening to another episode here on the Slow Living Collective podcast. I'm so grateful to have you here. I say every week, but I truly am. If you are able, please leave me a rating or a review. They help this podcast so much to find the ears of the people who really need to hear it. So thank you so much in advance for doing that. If you want to come and check out my blog, you can find me on theslowlivingcollective.com. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, you'll find me over there at Life on Plot 44. So I will leave all the links for everything to do with me down in the notes, and I will catch you in the very next episode. Thanks again for listening, and I will catch you in the next one.